What if you existed, but no one could see you? Not because you're a ghost, but because society refuses to acknowledge your identity, your voice, your humanity. This isn't a story about a superhero with powers. It's about a black man rendered invisible by a world that chooses not to see him. Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man isn't just a novel found. It's a mirror held up to the face of America, exposing the brutal truths of racism, identity, and erasure. And here's the haunting question. If no one sees you, do you still see yourself? Join us as we journey into a story that challenges perception, dismantles silence, and forces us to confront what it really means to be seen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to BookPodCastZone. I'm Emma, your guide through today's deep dive into a truly monumental work of literature.
And I'm John, embarking on a deep dive into really one of the most significant and just profound novels of the 20th century, Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man.
A classic.
It really is.
Yeah.
And this isn't just a story, right?
Yeah.
It feels more like an experience, like a visceral journey through the whole landscape of American identity and race.
Absolutely.
For this deep dive, our sources are these meticulously crafted chapter-by-chapter summaries, along with some really rich historical context and insightful analysis that honestly bring Ellison's prose to life.
Yeah, they really help unpack it.
They do. So we're going to try and pull out the most compelling nuggets, the surprising facts, the essential insights, basically help you understand why this novel still hits so hard today.
And our mission here, really, as we unpack this incredible narrative, is to illuminate how Ellison uses this one unnamed man's really tumultuous journey.
Yeah, unnamed, that's key.
It is, how he uses that journey to explore these universal themes of identity and societal recognition and, that relentless fight against erasure in a deeply, deeply racially charged America.
Right.
I mean, what's fascinating here is how Ellison, writing back in 1952, captured truths that, still resonate today.
They really do.
It compels us, even now, to consider what it truly means to be seen, or maybe more importantly, not seen by the world around us. It's a novel that really forces you to look beyond the surface, right? To question your own perceptions, grapple with the discomfort of what society acknowledges or what it, deliberately ignores.
That deliberate ignorance.
Exactly. It's a crucial exploration of the psychological and social toll of systemic racism, all wrapped up in this deeply personal, unforgettable narrative.
Okay, well, let's unpack this right from the jump then, because Ellison hits us with this powerful, almost haunting image of invisibility right there in the prologue.
Straight away.
Our narrator introduces himself just simply as the Invisible Man, and he's living in this brightly lit basement in New York.
Yeah, the lights are key.
Totally. He's literally siphoning electricity from the city above. He's underground, in the dark, but surrounded by, what is it, like 1,000 lights?
1,001, I think.
1,001 lights. It feels like he's desperately trying to reclaim some form of self-awareness, some kind of personal illumination down there. Such a striking image, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think Ellison is trying to tell us about visibility or, the lack of it right from the very beginning?
You've really hit on something crucial there, because it's not just about physical darkness, is it? It's so much deeper.
Right.
This prologue, it really functions as a thesis statement for the entire novel.
Okay.
This act of siphoning electricity, this almost desperate fight for even a sliver of light, it underscores how deeply society, and let's be specific, particularly white society, refuses to see him.
As an individual.
As a unique individual, exactly. They just project their stereotypes, their fears, their expectations onto him. And that effectively erases his true identity.
Wow.
So his retreat into this isolated underground space, it isn't just him giving up. You could see it as a kind of defiant act.
Defiant how?
Well, defiant in claiming his own reality, right? Even if nobody else acknowledges it. He's choosing to define himself, even down there in that deep, dark space. Remember, Ellison's writing this in 1952. He captures that palpable sense of alienation that African Americans felt in the pre-civil rights era. Systemic racism literally rendered Black individuals invisible in these white-dominated spaces.
So invisibility isn't just metaphorical.
No, it has a very real grounding. And that detail, the 1,001 lights powered by stolen electricity, it's so poignant. It's like a literal manifestation of his fight to exist,
Yeah.
To shine a light on his own being when the world just refuses to see him.
It's a rebellion.
It's a rebellion and a desperate plea for recognition in a world that just wants to keep him in the shadows. He's taking what he needs to see himself, even if no one else will.
And it's fascinating how from that sort of isolated philosophical start, Ellison immediately throws us back into the narrator's past.
Yeah, very different scene.
A very different scene. Starting with this profoundly disturbing high school memory in the South. This is in chapter 1.
The Battle Royal.
Exactly. Our narrator, he's bright, he's full of ambition. He gets invited to give a speech to these prominent white townsmen. He thinks, this is his shot.
His moment.
His moment. But it just devolves into this brutal, humiliating battle royal with other black youths, all staged for the, quote, entertainment of these elites. He's there to talk about hope, about the future, to show his intelligence. And instead, he's forced to physically fight, blindfolded, on an electrified carpet, to the amusement of this jeering crowd.
It's nightmarish.
It really is. What's truly chilling here isn't just the physical violence, though that's bad enough. It's the sheer degradation, isn't it? The stripping away of humanity.
Absolutely, Emma. Ellison isn't just showing us some cruel spectacle for shock value. He's laying bare how a system built on racial hierarchy actually commodifies black bodies.
Commodifies. Explain that a bit.
Well, the narrator's intellect, his ambitions, everything he wanted to express in that speech, it's all rendered irrelevant. What's valued by the white men is his ability to entertain, his participation in his own dehumanization.
Wow.
This scene is just a visceral analysis of that insidious illusion of opportunity within a system that is fundamentally rigged against you.
The illusion of opportunity.
Exactly. The white elites, they are interested in his humanity. They want a show. And black achievement, especially in the Jim Crow South back then, was almost always conditional on white approval.
Right.
It often served as entertainment, or worse, a way to reinforce those racial hierarchies rather than being genuine recognition of talent or worth.
And the scholarship he gets at the end.
That scholarship, it becomes this incredibly twisted carrot, doesn't it? A bittersweet victory, as our sources put it.
Yeah.
Because it forces him to confront that even his achievement, the thing he worked for, is still conditional on white approval. It serves to reinforce the very system that degrades him.
It's perverse.
It is. And the details, the blindfolded fighting, the electrified carpet, they aren't just shocking details. They're potent metaphors for how black individuals were kept in the dark, manipulated, literally shocked into submission.
All while being told they had a chance.
Precisely. All while being told they were being given a chance. It's a brutal, brutal irony. A horrifying rite of passage that just exposes the deep-seated racism and violence used to keep that racial status quo locked in place.
A brutal irony that leaves him, understandably, profoundly shaken. Yet somehow he still clings to this idea that there's a right way to succeed, even within this messed up system.
That fragile hope, yeah.
And it's precisely that fragile hope, that deep-seated desire for recognition that leads him to the Southern Black College in Chapter 2.
Trying a different path.
He thinks he's leaving that overt violence of the Jim Crow South behind, right? Seeking a more, benevolent path. He gets this role driving Mr. Norton.
The wealthy white trustee.
Yeah, who comes down seeking this romanticized view of black progress. He wants a clean, uplifted narrative of what his philanthropy is doing.
He wants to feel good about himself.
Basically. But even in this seemingly safer, more benevolent setting, a new, maybe more subtle form of control starts to emerge, doesn't it? What's the core disconnect here?
The core disconnect, as you put it really well, is between those, lofty white liberal ideals and the raw, often deeply uncomfortable realities of black life.
Okay.
This chapter is just a sharp critique of white paternalism. Norton represents that kind of benevolent white patron who wants to believe his contributions are creating this, sanitized, uplifted version of black life.
Neatly packaged.
Exactly. Neatly packaged, devoid of messiness or real hardship. But then the encounter with Jim Trueblood,
The sharecropper,
it profoundly shatters that sanitized narrative. Trueblood's story, which is taboo and deeply unsettling to Norton, it's a story of incest, poverty, hardship.
Things Norton doesn't want to see.
Exactly. It exposes the gritty, unidealized truths of rural black life. It forces Norton to confront a reality that is just too raw, too human, and way too far from his idealized vision. It's fascinating how Ellison uses Trueblood, who's actually an outcast from his own community, to expose the limits of a philanthropy that refuses to engage with the full spectrum of black experience.
Especially the uncomfortable parts.
Especially those parts that challenge comfortable assumptions. I mean, Norton literally faints from the shock.
He does.
Which just demonstrates his complete inability to reconcile his preconceived notions with the lived reality sitting right in front of him.
And it's almost like that suppressed truth, that intense discomfort just explodes at the Golden Day in Chapter 3.
Yeah, the chaos unfolds.
The narrator brings this clearly shaken Mr. Norton there, seeking help, I guess, and the scene just descends into utter chaos. It's a local tavern filled with black veterans.
Many suffering from war trauma.
Right, and it becomes this scene of just unbridled, defiant energy. What's really going on in this eruption, this like bottled up frustration?
Yeah.
And what does it tell us about the narrator's place in all of it?
This is just a chaotic, powerful explosion of suppressed rage, Emma. It really compels us to ask, when people are unseen and unheard for so long, what happens to all that suppressed rage?
Where does it go?
Exactly. The Golden Day is this cathartic outburst. It showcases the unpredictability of anger that's been simmering just beneath the surface of these rigid racial hierarchies. These Black veterans, they fought for America overseas, right?
Yeah.
Many of them probably experienced a fleeting sense of equality, maybe purpose in Europe.
Only to come home to the same thing.
Only to return home to the exact same discrimination and disrespect. Their rage, it has nowhere to go but to just erupt like this.
Yeah.
The scene captures this profound sense of absurdity, a real breaking point where the polite facades of society just completely crumble. The riot serves as this violent, cathartic explosion of all the frustrations simmered by discrimination, and it exposes the utter fragility of order in a racially charged world where these underlying tensions are just constantly ignored.
And the narrator.
The narrator's inability to control the situation, his complete bewilderment and powerlessness within these larger societal forces, it just underscores his continued naivete about the depth of this pain.
He's just caught up in it.
He is totally caught in the undertow, realizing that the ordered world he thought he knew is far, far more precarious than he ever imagined.
So after that chaos, after the Golden Day, our narrator goes back to the, quote, safe confines of the college in Chapter 4.
Back to supposed safety.
Only to face a totally new kind of betrayal. And this one comes from within his own community. He's summoned by Dr. Bledsoe.
The formidable college president.
Yeah, who blames him for Mr. Norton's distress and just promptly expels him. Bledsoe seems like this powerful figure, right? An icon within the Black community even. But he's also incredibly manipulative. Who is Dr. Bledsoe, really? And what does his character reveal about those power dynamics within Black institutions that were operating under white patronage?
Bledsoe is such a crucial and honestly quite tragic figure for understanding those complex power dynamics.
Tragic how?
Well, he's a Black leader who has achieved status and influence, but it came at a significant cost. He's compromised his integrity. He's essentially become an enforcer of the very system that oppresses his own people.
Wow.
Ellison uses him to pose that really difficult question. Who do you betray when you climb the ladder in a game that's already rigged?
Yeah.
Bledsoe's manipulation, his expulsion of the narrator, it highlights the profound cost of assimilation and institutional betrayal. He keeps his power by protecting the white benefactor's perception of the college.
Even if it means sacrificing his students.
Even if it means sacrificing his own students. It's a really damning critique of how some Black leaders back in that era were forced to compromise, or maybe actively chose to compromise their principles, just to maintain some semblance of power or influence within that white-dominated society. He's cunning, he's pragmatic, he's ruthless. He's a man who has learned to play the white man's game, maybe even better than the white man himself.
But at whose expense?
Exactly, at the expense of his own community's authentic progress. He believes he's looking out for the race, but in reality, he's upholding the very system that keeps his people down.
And it gets even more insidious, doesn't it, in Chapter 6? Because Bledsoe doesn't just expel him.
No, the letter.
He sends him off to New York with what the narrator thinks are his tickets to success, these glowing recommendation letters to powerful people. But they turn out to be anything but helpful. They're just a cruel deception. What's the significance of that moment? It feels like such a profound betrayal, almost worse than the overt violence he experienced before.
It truly is a profound deception, Emma, and it's one that just shatters the narrator's remaining illusions about finding help within the system.
Yeah.
This betrayal is a critical catalyst for his painful but absolutely necessary growth. It's that moment where he confronts the illusion of mentorship head on.
Illusion of mentorship. I like that.
Because the very people who were supposed to uplift him, right? to guide his ambition, they're the ones actively undermining it, pushing him towards an independence he wasn't even seeking yet.
Right.
Ellison highlights the fact that the institutions and figures he once trusted, the ones who were supposed to be his mentors, they're just as capable of deception and self-preservation as the overt oppressors he faced down south.
It's coming from all sides.
It really is.
Yeah.
Bledsoe's cold pragmatism and the hidden meaning of those letters, which basically label the narrator as a troublemaker, someone dangerous, definitely not to be hired.
Devastating.
It forces him to confront the harsh reality that he just cannot blindly trust anyone, regardless of their race or their position. It's a moment of profound disillusionment that just strips away his naive optimism, leaving him with nothing but this urgent need to figure out his own path.
Right.
And this really reflects the limited opportunities for Black youth in that era, where even trusted institutions could undermine individual ambition just to protect their own interests rather than genuinely uplifting their students.
So he's truly on his own now.
Completely on his own, navigating a world that seems absolutely determined to keep him from truly seeing or, being seen.
Okay, so armed with these deceitful letters, he finally makes it to Harlem in Chapter 7. The promised land of the North, right? Escaping the overt horrors of the South.
Or so he thinks.
Exactly. He arrives full of hope, believing he's leaving systemic oppression behind, that freedom and opportunity are just waiting for him. What does he actually find? And how quickly does that initial optimism sort of shift into a new kind of disillusionment?
It's fascinating how the North, which was seen as this beacon of hope for so many people during the Great Migration,
Yeah, the dream of escape.
it quickly reveals its own set of illusions and broken promises. It deeply challenges the narrator's preconceived notions of what freedom actually looks like.
How so?
Well, the truth is, for many Black Southerners who made that journey, the North was far from a utopia. Sure, Jim Crow segregation wasn't as blatant, maybe.
Less signs on doors.
Right. But they often faced new, more subtle, yet equally pervasive forms of discrimination, economic exploitation, persistent systemic barriers. It was just a different flavor of oppression. So the narrator's initial optimism quickly shifts to disillusionment as he realizes, first, that Bledsoe's letters are completely useless.
Yeah, that must have been a blow.
Huge. And then that the North has its own hidden rules, its own ways of keeping him invisible, keeping him down.
Right.
He has this chance encounter with a veteran who offers him some, let's say, unconventional wisdom, a kind of cynical, street-smart understanding about how to navigate this new reality.
A different kind of education.
Definitely. And it hints at the enduring challenges, revealing that the struggle for visibility and recognition isn't just geographical. It's deeply embedded in the whole societal fabric.
So just moving north didn't solve it.
Not at all. The bustling energy of the city, which initially seems so liberating, quickly starts to mask its underlying betrayals, just like the promise of freedom did. He's encountering a new, maybe more polite, but equally damaging form of invisibility.
And Harlem itself becomes this crucial, almost living character in the story. In Chapter 8, the narrator starts exploring it, looking for work, soaking in the vibe of this vibrant cultural hub. But it's not just a place of opportunity, is it? What kind of duality does Ellison paint for us about Harlem? How does it complicate the narrator's search for who he is?
Harlem, the way Ellison portrays it, it's this complex living entity that really embodies that struggle for belonging.
Okay.
On one hand, yes, it's a place of incredible artistic and intellectual energy. A true cultural hub, especially echoing the spirit of the Harlem Renaissance, that vibrant explosion of Black creativity and community.
Right, the cultural center.
Absolutely. And it offers a sense of belonging that the narrator desperately craves after his isolating experiences down south. But simultaneously, it's a place of immense economic hardship, deep racial tension, and new forms of exploitation. The struggle for identity actually intensifies here.
Why there?
Because he's surrounded by Black people, right? Yet he's still grappling with how to define himself in a world that refuses to see him as an individual, even within this supposed haven.
I see.
The sensory overload of the city, the sounds of jazz spilling out of clubs, the smells of street food, the vibrant life on the sidewalks, it's captivating, for sure.
Yeah.
But it also masks the subtle, insidious ways that he continues to be marginalized, sometimes even by his own people who are just struggling to survive themselves.
Wow. So even within the community, it's complex.
They're very complex.
And then comes another moment of really uncomfortable truth in Chapter 9 with Ellison Jr.
Ah, yes. The awkward encounter.
The wealthy white liberal son of one of the men Bledsoe wrote to. And Emerson Jr., in this clumsy attempt at kindness, reveals the hidden, devastating meaning of Bledsoe's letters.
Yeah, he spills the beans.
He does. What does this encounter tell us about the nature of allyship, maybe, and the narrator's ongoing painful education and betrayal?
This encounter with Emerson Jr., it really forces us to consider a crucial question, I think. Is allyship truly helpful if it's, performative, or if it's rooted in a kind of fascination with Black experience rather than a genuine understanding of it?
Performative allyship.
Yeah. Emerson Jr.'s awkward sincerity. Okay, maybe it seems like an act of kindness to reveal Bledsoe's deceit, but ultimately it critiques the limits of a certain type of white liberalism.
How so?
It exposes the superficiality of some allies. It often manifests as this fascination with Black culture or a desire to help from a distance rather than genuinely understanding or trying to dismantle systemic racism.
Right.
So this is a new kind of insidious layer of betrayal for the narrator. It's not malicious like Bledsoe's calculated deceit.
No, it feels different.
It feels different, maybe more unsettling, because it comes from someone who outwardly presents as an ally. It just reinforces his growing skepticism.
Yeah.
And the harsh reality that even those who claim to be on his side can still perpetuate his invisibility through their lack of true understanding or maybe just their own self-serving interests. It's a dawning realization for the narrator that even in the North and even among seemingly progressive white individuals, true recognition and genuine selfless support are still painfully elusive.
He's being seen by Emerson Jr., maybe.
But only in a way that confirms his status as a problem to be fixed or a curiosity to be observed, not as a complex individual, still not truly seen.
Right. Okay, so following that revelation, our narrator manages to get a job in Chapter 10.
Uh-huh.
It's at a paint factory.
Liberty Paints.
Liberty Paints, yeah, supposedly producing this optic white paint. The irony. A symbol of purity, visibility.
Loaded symbolism there.
Totally loaded. But it's far from the stepping stone he hoped for. What dangers does he run into here, both physical and, metaphorical? What does this whole industrial environment represent?
It's really fascinating how the factory environment itself becomes this potent metaphor for the oppressive forces at play.
How does it do that?
Well, it just strips individuals of their agency, reduces them to mere labor units. This chapter vividly analyzes the dehumanization of Black labor in industrial America, the rampant exploitation of Black workers.
Right.
The narrator faces hostility from his white coworkers, particularly the union guys.
Yeah, that Brockway character.
Exactly. And then there's that dangerous accident in the factory basement, which symbolizes his utter expendability within the system. He's just a cog in a machine, literally. Ellison uses the industrial sounds, the frantic pacing. He creates this visceral, perilous setting. You can almost hear the growl and whine of the machines, the shriek of the conveyor belts that are described in the novel. It creates this almost suffocating sensory environment. The factory is designed for efficiency and profit, right? Not for human well-being. And Black workers are at the bottom of that hierarchy, often stuck with the most dangerous and dehumanizing jobs.
Like mixing the paint correctly.
Or dealing with Brockway in the basement. His accident highlights the dangers of conformity in a system that views him as interchangeable, as just another nameless, faceless body.
Right.
It illustrates how even in a seemingly modern, progressive industrial environment, those old forms of exploitation just take on new, maybe more subtle disguises.
And the optic white paint.
The irony is crushing, isn't it? It's meant to make things more visible, yet his work in producing it only further underscores his own invisibility and expendability.
And then the medical treatment after that factory accident in Chapter 11.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a truly surreal turn.
It's like something out of a dream, but a really unsettling one. He undergoes this procedure that feels way more like an attempt to rewire his mind, to basically erase his identity than to actually heal his body.
Electroshock. What's the deeper meaning of this bizarre, almost Kafka-esque experience?
Yeah.
What does it represent for his whole struggle for self?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Emma, this surreal medical procedure, as the sources call it, it feels like the ultimate assault on individual identity.
A literal attempt to rewire him.
A literal attempt to rewire his mind and conform him. Yet, even here, somehow we see the power of resilience, the very beginning of a reclamation of self.
How so?
Well, this scene is just a chilling, deeply disturbing metaphor for society's relentless attempt to erase the narrator's identity, his individuality.
Right.
And it disturbingly echoes real historical instances of medical experimentation on Black bodies, like the horrific Tuskegee syphilis study. It highlights this systemic pattern of dehumanization and control.
That's chilling context.
It is. The doctors, they treat him not as a patient, but as an object, right? A specimen to be manipulated and cured of his identity. It's an attempt to literally strip him of his past, his memories, his sense of self. Essentially, to make him a more compliant, less troublesome member of society. They want to literally shock him into a new reality, one where he just accepts his assigned place.
Does it work?
That's the key. Even in this profound disorientation and assault, there's a spark of resistance. Despite the physical and psychological attack, the narrator begins this slow, painful process of reclaiming his selfhood.
Oh.
It's really a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of just profound oppression. He refuses to be fully erased, even when society tries to medically engineer his conformity.
Amidst all this disorientation, the systemic dehumanization, the factory, the hospital, our narrator finally finds a moment of respite.
Much needed.
And genuine care. In Chapter 12, he's taken in by Mary Rambo. She's this kind, maternal figure in Harlem who offers him a temporary home, a safe space. Who is Mary? What vital role does she play in his tumultuous journey? She just stands in stark contrast to almost everyone else he's met.
Mary Rambo is that vital anchor, isn't she? That nurturing presence. It's really fascinating how Ellison portrays the strength of communal bonds in Harlem through her character.
Yeah.
She offers this crucial counterpoint to all the systemic betrayals and the alienation the narrator has experienced up to this point.
So she represents community.
She represents the grounding force of the Black community, absolutely. She's a figure of profound kindness, a temporary mother figure who provides him with a sense of stability and belonging right when he's at his most vulnerable, surrounded by chaos.
Right.
She embodies the resilience and the compassion of those tight-knit Black communities that often existed as a refuge from the hostility of the larger white-dominated society.
A safe harbor.
Exactly. Her warmth and genuine care stand in such stark contrast to the cold, calculating figures he's encountered so far, whether they were white or Black.
Yeah.
She doesn't ask him to conform to some ideology or play a role. She just provides a safe space for him to exist and, begin to heal. She does encourage him, though, to remember his heritage, to be a credit to his race. But it feels like a much more benevolent kind of guidance than anything he's received before.
She sees him.
She sees him, even if he doesn't fully see himself yet. She offers that basic human recognition he's been lacking.
Following his recovery with Mary, our narrator then finds his voice, quite literally, doesn't he, at an eviction protest in Chapter 13.
Yeah, a powerful moment.
He delivers this passionate, impromptu speech that just electrifies the crowd. And, maybe more importantly, it catches the attention of the Brotherhood.
The Brotherhood enters.
This powerful political organization that seems to embody the very ideals he's been searching for. What happens there, and what is the immense allure of this new group for him?
This is such a pivotal moment. Because here's the narrator who's felt unseen for so long, and suddenly he feels profoundly seen and heard by a collective.
Finally getting recognition.
Exactly. But it compels us to ask, what are the risks, of embracing an ideology that promises purpose but might demand conformity?
The trade-off.
Yeah, right. This moment showcases the immense power of oratory, for sure, and the seductive appeal of finding a purpose, especially for someone who has felt so invisible and directionless for so long.
Yeah, you can see why he'd be drawn in.
Absolutely. The Brotherhood, with their polished rhetoric and these utopian ideals, they promise societal change, a clear path forward, an end to the injustices he's personally faced.
Sounds good on paper.
It does. They offer the narrator a sense of belonging and a defined role, which is a stark contrast to the disorienting individualism he's been forced into. They see his talent for speaking.
His rhetorical skill.
Exactly. And they believe they can mold him into a powerful voice for their cause. They give him a new name, a new identity, a place in their grand scheme.
There's always a but.
There's always a but. Ellison immediately hints at the underlying danger. That allure of ideology often comes at the cost of individuality. The narrator's enthusiasm and idealism, while genuine, also make him vulnerable.
Vulnerable to what?
Vulnerable to becoming a tool, rather than a true agent of change. The Brotherhood, like the other institutions before them, has its own agenda, and that agenda might not align with his true self or the needs of his community. This really mirrors the historical context, The communist and socialist movements in Harlem back in the 30s and 40s, They attracted many Black activists with promises of equality.
But often prioritize class over race.
Precisely. They often prioritized broader class-based agendas over specific racial justice issues. So he's finally visible, yes. But is it on his own terms, or is he just visible in the way they want him to be?
Right. So in Chapter 14, he dives headfirst into the Brotherhood. He fully embraces their ideals. Thinking he's finally found the path to being seen, to making a real difference, he commits completely.
All in.
All in. But as we've seen throughout this novel, every promise seems to come with a hidden cost, right? Every gain is shattered by some kind of loss. What's the hidden cost of this new allegiance?
Yeah.
What is he unknowingly sacrificing?
Well, the allure of a strong, unified ideology is incredibly powerful, especially for someone like the narrator, who is so desperately seeking identity and purpose. He's drawn to their polished talk, what looks like a clear path forward, a collective identity that feels strong. They offer him that new identity, the new name, the specific role. It gives him a sense of belonging he hasn't felt since maybe the early days of college.
Feels like an answer.
It feels like an answer. He feels a sense of purpose, like he's part of something bigger than himself, which is profoundly attractive after experiencing so much alienation.
But the critique.
But Ellison masterfully critiques the manipulation that can be inherent in political movements, especially those demanding absolute conformity to a party line.
Right.
The narrator's idealism, while initially empowering, makes him vulnerable. Vulnerable to becoming a tool, like we said, rather than an independent agent of change. He's encouraged to suppress his individual thoughts, his gut feelings.
For the greater good.
For the greater good of the organization, exactly, which is just a subtle form of erasure, isn't it? It mirrors the overt types of invisibility he's faced before.
Wow. Yeah.
He's becoming visible, but only on their terms, not his own. He's like a pawn in their larger intellectual chess game. He's essentially trading one form of invisibility for another, becoming invisible within the collective, his true self hidden again.
And as the narrator steps further into his Brotherhood role in Chapter 15, he makes a big move. He leaves Mary's comforting home.
Cuts that tie.
Moves into Brotherhood-approved housing, severing his most authentic personal connection. There's a really clear personal cost to this new ambition, isn't there? You feel his guilt, his breaking of those vital individual connections for this larger, more abstract cause.
There's definitely a heavy internal conflict playing out there, Emma. It's that classic dilemma, isn't it, between pursuing a larger cause and holding on to the intimate human connections that actually sustain us. The narrator's departure from Mary's home, it symbolizes that tension perfectly. The tension between his personal, authentic connections and his burgeoning ambition within the Brotherhood.
He feels the weight of it.
Oh, absolutely. He feels the weight of leaving her behind. He acknowledges the profound kindness she showed him, the true solace she offered. This internal guilt highlights the evolving nature of his identity.
Oh, so?
He's now actively prioritizing the collective goals of the Brotherhood over his individual relationships, over the comfort of genuine human connection. It's a universal activist dilemma, really.
How much do you sacrifice?
How much do you sacrifice of your personal life, your personal identity, your relationships, for the perceived greater good of a movement? Ellison shows us that these sacrifices are never without a significant emotional toll. And they further complicate the narrator's already fragmented sense of self.
He's gaining a public identity.
But losing a piece of his private, deeply human self in the process.
And in Chapter 16, he delivers another powerful speech for the Brotherhood. He seems to be finding his authentic voice through public speaking, really captivating the audience.
He's good at it.
He is. Yet, even as he finds this newfound power, there's this creeping sense of unease that Ellison hints at, a feeling of being subtly controlled, maybe manipulated. What does that tell us about his newfound voice within the Brotherhood, that paradox of speaking for a collective?
This is such a crucial point because it forces us to ask, how much of your authentic voice do you actually sacrifice when you speak for a group or an ideology?
Right.
The narrator's public speaking skills are undeniable, no question. And for a moment, he feels truly seen and heard. He's charismatic, he can move crowds with his passion and conviction.
Yeah.
However, Ellison skillfully explores that delicate balance between genuine agency and subtle manipulation and activism. Despite the passion he feels, he also senses the Brotherhood's underlying control.
The strings attached.
The strings attached. They're subtle cues, they're directives that shape his message, even if he doesn't fully realize it at first. His voice is powerful, yes, but it's not entirely his own. It's being channeled through the Brotherhood's rigid ideological framework. This highlights the constraints of organizational loyalty and the insidious way that even positive recognition can come with conditions, limiting authentic self-expression.
It's controlled expression.
It's controlled expression, exactly. His individuality is being subsumed by the party line, and his words are ultimately meant to serve their agenda, not necessarily the pure truth as he perceives it. He might be speaking, but he's still not fully free to speak his truth.
Then we see these ideological clashes really come to the forefront in Chapter 17 with the introduction of Raz.
Ah, Raz the Exhorter.
Yeah, this imposing Afrocentric rival figure. Our narrator has chosen the Brotherhood's path, right? Advocating for this universal class-based struggle. But Raz presents a very different and very fiery vision for Black liberation.
Rooted in Black nationalism.
Exactly, Black nationalism and separatism. What do these two figures represent, and why is their conflict so significant for the narrator's evolving understanding of what freedom even means?
This clash is absolutely fascinating because Ellison uses it to show us that even within the struggle for liberation, there are these profound ideological divides. There's no single easy path forward.
Right, it's not monolithic.
Not at all. Raz, often called Raz the Exhorter, or later Raz the Destroyer, he's a passionate Black nationalist. He represents a separatist, confrontational approach. He believes fiercely in the strength of Black identity, Black self-reliance.
And he distrusts white involvement.
Deeply distrusts any white involvement or integrationist movements like the Brotherhood. He sees them as inherently corrupting or manipulative.
Okay.
The Brotherhood, by contrast, is this multiracial, ostensibly Marxist organization that prioritizes class struggle over race. They believe racial issues will just sort of resolve themselves once the global capitalist system is overthrown.
Two very different worldviews.
Very different. Their clash highlights the complex and often competing visions for Black liberation during that era. It reflects real-world tensions, between groups like Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association and more integrationist organizations like the NAACP. Raz's fiery, confrontational tone directly challenges the narrator's faith in the Brotherhood's more structured, supposedly rational approach. It forces the narrator to confront the validity of different, even opposing perspectives on how to achieve true freedom.
He's caught in the middle.
He's stuck between two powerful, absolute ideologies, and neither one seems to fully accommodate his individual truth or experience.
And it's not just external clashes he's dealing with. In Chapter 18, the narrator starts to discover the Brotherhood's true internal politics. And guess what? It's another profound betrayal.
The disillusionment continues.
He realizes their willingness to sacrifice Harlem's immediate pressing interests, the things his community actually needs now for their broader, more abstract political goals. What does this profound disillusionment mean for him at this point?
This discovery is just a crushing blow to the narrator's remaining idealism and that burgeoning sense of belonging he thought he'd found within the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
It's a profound moment of disillusionment. Realizing that even your supposed allies can betray your community's interests for their own agenda.
It must feel like nowhere is safe.
Exactly. He sees that despite all their grand rhetoric about universal brotherhood and equality, the Brotherhood is prioritizing their own global political agenda, often focused on class struggle over the specific, immediate needs and struggles of the Black community right there in Harlem.
Right.
And again, this mirrors how groups like the Communist Party, while attracting many Black members with promises of racial equality, often sideline specific racial justice issues in favor of those broader class-based revolutions. And that ultimately alienated their Black constituency.
History repeating itself.
In a way, yes. The narrator's growing suspicion becomes this painful reality. The organization he has dedicated himself to is capable of the exact same kind of calculated betrayal he experienced down south with Bledsoe. They're using him and his community as pawns in a larger game.
Wow.
It's another devastating reminder that his community's interests are secondary to external agendas, regardless of who appears to be in charge. He's being used, again, and this time by people he actually considered comrades.
And to complicate matters even further, in Chapter 19, there's also this personal, awkward, and ultimately objectifying encounter with a white female Brotherhood member.
Sybil, yeah.
This relationship adds another layer of complexity to his relationships within the Brotherhood, blurring those lines between the political and the intimate in a really uncomfortable way.
This particular involvement, it highlights a deeper critique Ellison is making about interracial dynamics and the subtle ways Black identity can be objectified, even within supposedly progressive activist circles.
How is he objectified here?
The encounter reveals this problematic fetishization of Black identity. The narrator isn't seen by her as an individual with his own desires and complexities, but more as an exotic or intriguing other, like a symbol or a project rather than a person. This just adds to the personal cost of his political roles within the Brotherhood. He's not just being used ideologically by the organization, he's being used personally, too, in a way that continues to deny his full humanity.
Yeah.
It shows his continued vulnerability to being used or misunderstood, even by those who claim to be on his side. It's this uncomfortable intimacy that underscores the pervasive nature of his invisibility. He's still not seen for who he truly is, but rather as a stereotype, a fascination, or maybe an ideological statement. And this reflects those complex, often fraught interracial alliances of the era, where Black activists could be exoticized or manipulated, even by those who considered themselves progressive and enlightened.
So after all these layers of betrayal, from the college to the factory to finally the Brotherhood itself in Chapter 20, the narrator truly sees the Brotherhood for what they are.
The blinders are off.
Completely off.
Yeah.
Willing to abandon Harlem? Willing to sacrifice his community's needs for their own abstract goals?
Yeah.
What's his reaction to this ultimate disillusionment? And what does this revelation signify for his journey towards self-awareness?
This is a monumental turning point for the narrator, Emma. It really is. It's an emotional pivot, shifting from that lingering idealism to just righteous anger. And that signifies his definitive break from seeking external definitions of purpose.
He's had enough.
He has absolutely had enough. The Brotherhood's calculated betrayal of the Harlem community, their cold decision to sacrifice the interests of his people for their own abstract, broader political goals. It finally shatters his last vestiges of blind loyalty. His idealism completely collapses, and it transforms into this potent, righteous outrage. This isn't just disappointment anymore. It's a profound sense of fury that finally sparks his rebellion.
And he reclaims his agency.
He reclaims his agency, yes, rejecting their control, rejecting the identity they tried to impose on him. And this anger, far from being purely destructive, becomes a source of resolute determination.
Determination for what?
Determination to push him towards a path where he will define his own purpose rather than having it dictated to him by any institution, whether it's a college, a factory, or a political movement. He begins to understand that true freedom lies in self-determination, even if that means standing alone.
He channels that grief and anger into action, doesn't he? Taking matters into his own hands. In Chapter 21, the narrator organizes a funeral for Todd Clifton.
A fallen Brotherhood member, yeah, shot by police.
Right. And this event galvanizes the Harlem community in this incredibly powerful display of collective mourning and resistance. How does this collective sorrow manifest? And what does it tell us about the power of shared experience, of community bonds outside of organized, often manipulative ideology?
This funeral is just a profound exploration of the role grief plays in activism and the immense strength of community bonds when they're authentic. If we connect this to the bigger picture, even in the face of betrayal by the Brotherhood, collective action and mourning can be incredibly powerful forces for change. They solidify bonds in a way that ideology couldn't.
So the community rallies.
The community rallies. While the Brotherhood may have betrayed them, the shared loss galvanizes the people of Harlem against the injustice of Clifton's death. It transforms their sorrow into this powerful, unified protest.
And the narrator's role?
The narrator, by organizing and speaking at the funeral, showcases his emerging leadership. But this time, it's a leadership rooted in authentic connection and shared pain, not in some abstract ideological dogma handed down from above.
Feels real.
It feels real. It's a poignant moment where collective mourning transforms into this potent force for resistance and solidarity. It demonstrates the raw, visceral power of unity that transcends the Brotherhood's manufactured rhetoric. It shows the resilience and strength of a community coming together in the face of loss and betrayal, reaffirming a sense of belonging that no institution could provide or take away.
And how do the Brotherhood react to his defiance, to his newfound independent leadership in Chapter 22? Do they embrace his authentic voice, or do they, double down on control?
This brings us back to that crucial question. What happens when the very institutions designed to uplift instead demand silence and conformity?
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, the Brotherhood reprimands him. And it's a harsh, chilling reprimand. This act just exposes their fundamental organizational flaws and their hypocrisy.
They don't like him going off script.
Not at all. They are not interested in empowering authentic community leadership. They are interested in control and strict conformity to their party line. The reprimand is a direct challenge to his autonomy, to his reclaiming of his voice.
But for the narrator,
For the narrator, it's the moment of final rupture. He's no longer willing to be silenced or manipulated. His rebellion here isn't just about expressing anger, it's a definitive act of self-assertion.
he's drawing a line.
He's drawing a line, a clear statement that he will no longer serve as a compliant mouthpiece for any external agenda. It solidifies his understanding that true liberation requires intellectual and personal independence, even if it means standing completely alone. Maybe even embracing that invisibility, but by choice this time, rather than by societal imposition.
This entire arc, disillusionment, rebellion, self-assertion, it all culminates in chapter 23 where the Harlem riot erupts.
Chaos descends.
The city descends into chaos, and our narrator's right in the thick of it. He encounters Ross again.
Ross, the destroyer.
Transformed into this terrifying, almost mythic figure on horseback. But instead of confronting him directly, the narrator chooses to use disguised sunglasses, a hat to survive the pandemonium. What's fundamentally different about his approach this time, compared to his earlier desperate attempts to be seen?
What's truly fascinating here is the narrator's incredible adaptability. You really see his growth. He's no longer desperately seeking to be seen in the way he once was, no. Instead, he's learning to use invisibility as a strategic tool for survival.
Turning it into a tool.
Exactly. The Harlem riot itself is this raw, explosive manifestation of decades of systemic neglect and racial tension. Historically, it mirrors events like the 1943 Harlem riot where frustrations just boiled over.
Right.
For the narrator, this chaos forces him to engage in a totally different kind of survival. His choice of disguise, a deliberate act of self-effacement, using those dark glasses and hat he finds, is a stark contrast to his earlier desperate attempts to gain recognition and acceptance.
Yeah, he's not trying to impress anyone now.
Not at all. He's no longer seeking validation from external sources. Instead, he's learning to use invisibility as a strategic tool, a means to navigate and observe the chaos without being caught in its destructive currents. It highlights the fluidity of identity and the narrator's growing understanding that sometimes not being seen can actually be a source of profound power. It allows him to move freely, to gather information in a way that overt visibility would completely prevent.
He's reclaiming his invisibility.
He's reclaiming his invisibility, turning what felt like a curse into a kind of cloak, a strategy.
And in chapter 24, he continues to move through the riot, observing the destruction, grappling with his own role in it all, experiencing a very different kind of anonymity than the one he knew back south. What does this period of observation tell us about him? How does it further contribute to his understanding of his identity?
This chapter really explores both the profound power and, frankly, the inherent peril of anonymity.
How so?
Well, the freedom afforded by his disguise allows him to observe the riot with a degree of detachment he hasn't really had before. He witnesses the raw, unbridled fury, the despair, the misguided actions of both the rioters and maybe the authorities. He sees the profound tragedy of it all.
From the outside looking in?
Sort of. This unique vantage point, born out of his chosen invisibility, deepens his understanding of societal breakdown, the complexities of human behavior under extreme duress. He sees the chaos, yes, but also the underlying desperation, the systemic neglect that fuels these kinds of eruptions.
But there's a peril, too.
There's also a cost to that detachment. It can lead to a sense of isolation, of being disconnected even while observing. But even amidst this societal breakdown and personal danger, his self-reflection continues.
He's still thinking.
He's still thinking, still trying to make sense of the chaos, his past choices, his future path. It indicates this profound internal growth. Even as the external world is literally crumbling around him, he's becoming an active observer, using his invisibility to gain clearer sight.
And finally, in chapter 25, the chaos of the riot culminates in his accidental fall into a manhole.
Plunges into darkness.
Leading him right back to where we started underground, in a basement space. What's the profound significance of this cyclical journey, this literal descent?
Yeah.
And the riot itself as a culmination of all the novel's themes?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Emma, the riot is both desperate protest and profound despair. It's a visceral reflection of the systemic neglect and the racial tension that defined mid-20th century America.
Yeah.
And his fall into the manhole. It's deeply symbolic. It's a metaphorical descent into himself, into the depths.
Right.
It's the culmination of society's profound failure to see him, to understand the simmering rage and despair that finally erupts in the riot. The physical descent into the manhole and his eventual return to an underground lair represent this forced yet ultimately deliberate, retreat.
A full circle.
It's a full circle, a return to the very space of invisibility he occupied at the beginning. But, and this is crucial, he is not the same person who started there.
He's changed.
He is profoundly changed. The riot, which historically reflects events like the 1943 Harlem riot, is depicted as both that desperate protest against systemic injustice and a reflection of profound unresolved despair. It's this visceral, destructive outpouring of frustrations that have been suppressed for far too long.
And for the narrator.
For the narrator, this retreat into invisibility is now a conscious choice. It's a space he deliberately seeks out to process his experiences, to make sense of everything, and to finally emerge, if he chooses to, on his own terms, no longer dictated by others.
He enters the darkness differently.
He enters the darkness not as a victim anymore, but maybe as a strategist, preparing for his reemergence, whenever and however that might happen.
So after this epic, truly tumultuous journey, our narrator is back where we found him in the epilogue, in his brightly lit underground basement.
He's back underground.
He's still physically unseen by the world above, still disconnected from society in that way. But his perspective, it seems radically shifted. He's no longer just defined by the world's refusal to see him. What does this final reflection signify for his understanding of self and for the enduring message of Invisible Man?
What's truly fascinating here, I think, is that profound shift. He moves from a kind of passive acceptance of the invisibility that society imposed on him to an active embrace of it, seeing it as a strategic position, a place for understanding, and maybe even potential action. He finds strength, a unique vantage point, in his unseen state.
He finds power in it.
He finds power in it. The narrator is indeed back in his basement, but he is fundamentally transformed. The epilogue emphasizes his profound reflection on his entire journey, his early naivete, the betrayals he suffered, the rage he felt, and that slow, painful path to self-discovery.
Yeah.
He no longer sees his invisibility primarily as a curse, as a weakness imposed upon him. He sees it rather as a necessary space for self-definition and understanding.
A space to figure things out.
Exactly. He realizes that while society refuses to see him, he can use this very state of being unseen to see society and himself much more clearly.
The observer again?
The ultimate observer, maybe. This is the power of self-definition. Accepting his unique state, not as a weakness, but as a position of strength and unique perspective. And it holds the hope for change.
How so?
Well, maybe not just through grand, organized movements, which he's seen fail him, but change born from individual agency, from introspection. Ellison, writing right there on the cusp of the civil rights movement, seems to hint at the possibility of societal transformation, starting with individuals who truly see themselves and the world around them, even if they have to do it from the margins.
Wow.
He's found his voice within himself, finally. A voice that can challenge the very notion of what it means to be seen.
We've journeyed through the painful, often brutal truths of Ralph Ellison's Invisible Man. We've witnessed how society's refusal to see someone can define them, distort them, even destroy them. But we've also seen the incredible resilience of the human spirit, the power of self-discovery, and the possibility of finding strength even in the unseen, even in the depths of radical isolation.
Ellison leaves us with such a profound, almost echoing question, doesn't he? If your identity is shaped by how others perceive you, what happens when those perceptions are fundamentally flawed or maybe just entirely absent? And maybe more critically, what unique perspective, what insight can you gain when you exist just outside the gaze of the mainstream? What hidden truths might you uncover about yourself and about society when you are rendered, quote, invisible?
Think about this. In our world today, so obsessed with visibility, with curated online personas, with constant external validation, is there a quiet, maybe even defiant power in choosing when and how you are seen?
That's a challenging thought.
And maybe even more importantly, what or who might you be overlooking in your own world simply because you haven't truly learned how to see past the surface? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Invisible Man.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeing.